All right, let's jump right in. Welcome to our latest explainer. Today, we're diving into a really complex, deeply human environmental crisis that's unfolding as we speak in the Ganges-Brahmaputra Meghna Delta. We're looking at how shifting climates and changing waters are completely reshaping human lives and livelihoods across southern Bangladesh. It's a story of intense ecological transformation, massive hardship, but also, as you'll see, some absolutely incredible human resilience.
To really ground us in the humanitarian focus of what we're looking at today, I want to start by sharing this exact message. Hi, welcome and greetings to the production of Manik Esahak Biswas, a prominent social development worker and humanitarian professional, more than 15 years in environmental activities in Southern Asia. It's through that deeply personal, community-focused lens that we're going to explore this reality.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the silent curse of salt, look at the transition from rice to shrimp, explore the public health crisis, discuss populations trapped by the tide, see why the Sundarbans are under threat, and wrap up with adapting to the salt.
Let's start with Chapter 1, The Silent Curse of Salt. We're dealing with an invisible, creeping threat here that's literally changing the map. The crucial thing to understand is that this isn't just about rising water levels, it's about the actual chemistry of that water. Thanks to a mix of climate-driven sea level rise, increasingly intense cyclone surges, and less freshwater flowing from upstream dams, a toxic tide of salt is invading the coastal soils and rivers. And we aren't talking about a few isolated farms. This saltwater is creeping into lands that are home to around 35 million people, fundamentally destroying the foundation of their agriculture.
Moving to Chapter 2, From Rice to Shrimp.
So, what do you do when the land your family has farmed for generations suddenly turns salty? Let's look at how this played out over the last few decades. Back in the 1970s, this area was all about traditional, sustainable rice farming. But as the salt started creeping in naturally and global demand skyrocketed, the 80s and 90s saw a massive boom in saltwater shrimp farming. People started calling it white gold. Outside investors came in and intentionally trapped saltwater on the land to grow these shrimp. Fast forward to today, and that practice has drastically escalated soil salinity, leading to a near-total collapse of the traditional local agriculture.
And here's the core trade-off. On one hand, you have traditional rice farming. It feeds the local community and works in harmony with the soil. On the other hand, you've got shrimp farming. It's incredibly lucrative and great for national exports, but it actively destroys this soil by keeping it constantly flooded with saltwater. So you're essentially trading long-term local food and water security for short-term financial gains that usually end up in the pockets of external investors. And the salt doesn't politely stay in the shrimp ponds either. It leaches out, ruining nearby farms and local drinking water.
That brings us to Chapter 3, A Public Health Crisis. Let's shift gears from the economics of the land to the actual biology of the human body. Take a look at this number, 5 grams. According to the World Health Organization, to keep your blood pressure in a healthy range, you really shouldn't consume more than 5 grams of salt per day. Keep that tiny amount in mind.
Because here is the completely shocking reality for folks living in these coastal areas. The local ponds and tube wells are so contaminated by the encroaching seawater and the shrimp farms that residents are hitting 50% to 100% of their daily salt limit just from drinking water. Let that sink in. Before they've eaten a single bite of food, they've already maxed out their safe biological limit for sodium.
And what does drinking all that salt actually do to a person? The health outcomes are honestly terrifying. For the average adult, it causes chronic, elevated blood pressure, a silent killer, especially in rural areas without a ton of clinics or hospitals. But the absolute worst of it hits pregnant women. This salty water is directly linked to huge spikes in gestational hypertension and preeclampsia. And preeclampsia is currently one of the top 5 causes of direct maternal death globally. The changing environment is literally turning the water into a severe danger for mothers and their babies.
Chapter 4, Trapped by the Tide.
Now, you might be wondering, if the water is toxic and the crops are dead, why don't people just pack up and leave? Well, it's a brutal catch-22, known by researchers as becoming involuntary non-migrants. When the soil gets ruined for shrimp farming, poor farmers lose their rice harvest. No rice means no income, so they become entirely vulnerable to the harsh environment. But because they have no income, they literally don't have the money to move away. They are trapped in place by the exact same environmental disaster that destroyed their livelihood in the first place.
Chapter 5, The Sundarbans Under Threat.
This creeping salt doesn't just trap humans, it's suffocating nature too. Specifically, the region's biggest natural shield, the Sundarbans. It's the largest mangrove forest in the world, and it survives on a really delicate balance of fresh and salt water. But as the salt pushes further inland, the forest is struggling. The sundri tree, which is this highly valuable, freshwater-loving tree the forest is literally named after, is projected to lose 45% of its stock by the year 2100 purely because of the salt. The trees are growing shorter, losing their leaves, and dying.
And you know how ecology works, right? Nothing happens in a vacuum. Losing the sundri trees sets off a massive domino effect. We're talking about losing critical habitat for the endangered Bengal tiger. The changing plants completely disrupt local honey production, which is a massive source of income for people there. As resources dry up, wild animals wander closer to villages, causing dangerous human-wildlife conflicts. And perhaps the scariest part for the 35 million people living inland, a dying mangrove forest means your natural storm barrier against massive cyclones is weakening, along with the Earth's ability to sink carbon.
Let's look at Chapter 6, Adapting to the Salt. I know, that's a heavy, daunting reality, but the story absolutely does not end with despair. The people here are incredibly resourceful. For example, when the soil is too salty for normal watering, farmers use the kalash, or pitcher irrigation method. It is genuinely brilliant in its simplicity. They take a local clay pitcher, poke a small hole in it, and run a piece of jute ribbon through it. They bury the pitcher right next to their seeds. As they fill it with precious fresh water, that wet ribbon slowly and steadily leaches water right into the root zone. That constant tiny flow actually pushes the salt in the soil away from the roots. It lets them grow life-saving veggies like watermelons and sweet gourds in dirt that looks completely barren. Another game changer is the forest fish fruit, or FFF model. Communities take this dead, salt-ruined land behind the mangroves and completely reshape it. They dig a series of alternating mounds and ditches. When the monsoon rains come, those new ditches catch and hold the freshwater rainwater. Then they cultivate fish in those freshwater ditches, and they use the raised dirt mounds to grow fruit trees. They are literally turning dead zones into a thriving multi-income ecosystem that can boost a single family's income by up to $1,000 a year. It's just an unbelievable display of resilience.
So what's the big takeaway here? The people of southern Bangladesh are fighting back and innovating with every single tool they have. But they are on the front lines of a crisis they largely didn't create. Which leaves us with a really provocative question. As climate change accelerates, how is the global community going to ensure justice and structural support for these incredibly resilient populations who are currently shouldering the heaviest burdens of our changing planet?
I really hope this explainer shed some light on the staggering challenges, but also the unyielding spirit of the communities in this coastal delta. To close things out today, I'll leave you with this mandated final thought. It was a great pleasure that you made your time to invest watching this video production by Manik Esahak Biswas. Thank you for the watching, and have a blessed day ahead. Keep asking questions, keep learning, and we'll catch you next time.